As part of our due diligence, we've had a broad and very aggressive outreach in the community to make folks aware of the Wiregrass Power LLC. And as part of that outreach, we've spoken with a number of people in the community, a number of organizations, individuals, and part of that outreach has been to understand what their concerns were, and to take those concerns and come back and answer the questions as best we could. And over the past several months, as we were working towards this information exchange and panel discussion, which we really looked at as a culminating event for that 2-year outreach that we have been working, we had a number of folks talk to us about their concerns about public health. And some specific questions that were put to me and you and other folks that, is this going to harm us and our children and our community if we bring a biomass electric generating plant to the community? So in order to work on providing the best and most accurate answers that we could, we reached out with the company, Sterling Energy Assets and Wiregrass Power, and working together and working with many folks across the country who were giving us recommendations, we decided that we would approach Dr. Christopher Teaf to do this analysis for us in terms of public health concerns, and ask him really to be the keynote speaker at our information exchange and panel discussion. And I put in front of you a copy of Dr. Teaf's curriculum vitae and a little bit about his information about him. He's a toxicologist and public health specialist, but I would want you to know that, as Brad mentioned, he's the Associate Director of the Center of Biomedical and Toxicological Research and Waste Management for the University of Florida. He is also President of and Director of Toxicology for Hazardous Substance and Waste Management Research. He has a PhD in toxicology, an MS in biological science, and a BS in biology. In his professional memberships that we were certainly impressed by, and other folks who have worked with him include the Academy of Toxicological Science, the Florida Bar, Environmental and Land Use Law, International Society of Technical Environmental Professionals, National Association of Environmental Professionals, Society of Toxicology, Society for Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry, and Society for Risk Analysis. And he's a board-certified fellow of the Academy of Toxicological Science. So we really did want to make sure that as we reached out to folks to answer their questions, that those answers were coming from someone who had some bona fides and that we had confidence in. During the panel discussion and the information exchange, Dr. Teaf brought to us a very concise presentation that I'm going to just share with you briefly, because he really took what were the concerns that came to us, and I thought addressed those in a very clear way. He first started with some basic issues here. Some folks have thought that a biomass facility is a smoky fire pit and would put lots of opacity into the atmosphere, and of course he addressed that as being inaccurate. He certainly says the facility must be judged on engineering for its emissions, and that bears forth in what you see in what the Georgia EPD does with regards to emission controls. He talked about the extensive analysis during the permitting development process. And I would say to you that for a minor source non-prevention of significant deterioration of air quality, which this plant is permitted as, typically that process takes about 4 months to complete. Because of some additional work that we did with EPD, in this case it took about 9 months, because we really wanted to make sure that there was a thorough assessment that was done. He talked about the stringent controls on Wiregrass facility to limit emissions, and I won't go into all of that detail, but it is available for you in the permit. And then he also talked about the fact that by permit and design, the facility would have multiple overlapping controls and systems to address emissions. And then he really focused on the issues that had been brought to us by folks who voiced their concern. One was mercury, and of course you can see here that the facility will be better than permit limits by a wide margin. The emissions would be ounces per year, not pounds. The maximum concentrations are far below health-based criteria. He also talked about that in most cases, principal concerns for mercury are typically related on issues with food and edible fish, and that emissions in this case that might come from the Wiregrass power plant would be particulate, not methyl mercury. And then he went on to talk about the fact that really there would be no effect on local water bodies, or if there were, it would be negligible. We asked him to address particulate matter, what we commonly call PM, and we really wanted him to focus on PM 2.5, which was a smaller particulate matter, and he brought to us information to substantiate that by that standard, the plant would be 1% or less of the standard. He talked a little bit about the air quality of Valdosta being good and that we are in what's called an attainment zone. And then he made this comparison with the particulate matter, the comparison with open burning, field fires, forest fires like we've experienced here recently with the fire that was over in some adjacent counties, and that the comparison with open burning of an equivalent mass of biomass material like Brad had mentioned, and Stan Parton brought to us, would show substantial reductions by controlled burning within the facility. I'm going to stop just a minute so that we can accommodate some folks here.
Kind of crowded room.